Welcome to today's video. My name is Lela and this is Paint and Draw Together channel where I record my artistic journey and the way how I capture the world and surrounding in my art. In this video, I would like to share with you what in my experience has been the best way to capture your life memories. And that is to do art journaling. In my case, I express it through line and wash watercolor paintings, but it can be anything as it suits your artistic endeavors. You can choose drawings, acrylics, watercolor, ink drawings, or any other collage or artistic expression. In this specific video, I would like to share with you one of the paintings I made while, I have to be honest, I was crazy busy doing so many things on my vacation days. However, I did craft out 2 hours, which I didn't have in that day, so that I can capture this unique and precious moment and memory. And now, looking back at it, I can certainly say it's one of the most beautiful memories I have and the most vivid memories I managed to capture. And all that because I was there, I was very busy, but I certainly found time to sit down on a wobbly 3-leg chair in the corner, pretty much in the way of everybody else who was passing by, and capture this beautiful surrounding the way how I saw it. And you will see it's quite mundane, everyday scene in the mountains, but it is something which in a unique way captures the world around us in the most beautiful and the most rewarding manner. The scene I chose to paint here was the front of the house, very small village house, with very old-fashioned tap which has concrete surrounding, and it has been there for probably 50 plus years. And it's done in the way how in old days those taps were done. It has small carved area where you can put soap or some other everyday item which you will be using next to the tap. It has stones around and grass and moss and green field behind it. However, what really captured my artistic eyes was this long line, which is usually used to dry clothes, but on that day, it has been used to dry pepper. It was September, and that's the time when glorious harvest is ready and the pepper is picked and then it is nicely knitted around on a long string and hanged for days and days to dry in the sun. And that is what I wanted to capture. I wanted to capture that old world which we in the modern days very often forget about, or which is in essence hard work, but very fulfilling and very gratifying work. And that is what I certainly reminded myself of when I was on this, call it vacation, but very busy vacation time. I was on vacation from my corporate world, but I was immersed in another world, in another time zone, in the place and time which sometimes we tend to believe is completely forgotten. Things which are so rich and so vivid and so fulfilling that they certainly can bring balance to your life and certainly can remind you that there is something else besides glass towers and cityscapes. And that is what brings mind in balance. and you know that there is something else out there which is beautiful and worthwhile capturing. I don't know about you, but for me, capturing glass towers and bridges which do not have character is not really appealing. It doesn't cause my artistic juices to flow, and I simply cannot put myself together to capture one of those and call them artistic subjects. But if you put me in the mountains, in the nature, in the rustic village, with something which has been around for tens, fifties, hundreds, thousands of years, I am in my best element. And here in this mountain village, while being busy with everything what everyday's life there brings, and being excited about every new day and what that day will be this time bringing, I managed to find 2 hours of time to actually work on this painting. And now I will share with you how I approach this watercolor journal and what really worked for me, which might work for you as well. When I try to paint plain air and be outside, my first and probably logical approach was let's bring all my art supplies, have myself comfortable, and then I would be at my best element to create this nice, beautiful, large 8x6 or larger outdoor sketch. After trying for a few years, I came to conclude that that does not work for me. Even though I had the entire day or half of it most of the time, it didn't work. And the reason it didn't work is I was out and about, and the time I needed to set myself up to capture the drawing of the scenery, to paint that scenery and still be happy and satisfied with what I accomplished was not there. It certainly did not fit in that half day or a few hours I had. Every single time I would come back, and then I would spend another 2 or 3 painting sessions working through my references to actually complete that drawing. And that didn't somehow fulfill my objective. Even though it was great and I was happy with the outcome and I was grateful for the experience, I still wanted to have that completed drawing there while I am looking at that alive subject, knowing that the subject will change over time. But even with that, within 2-3 hours, it is still staying sufficiently same so that you can still see what you would like to see and capture it. Even in this painting here, this long line with pepper, which is hanging to dry, was there when I started. And by the end, you will see, it wasn't there anymore. There was a moment where it just was in the way and it was removed while I was painting. So you have to be aware of those things and capture what you can while it's still in front of your eyes, and then capture the rest, which is not going to change. And those rocks and this tap is certainly something which would not be moved by anybody anytime soon. So what I found out for my outdoor paintings and journaling is that I can do certain things, but there is a lot what I cannot do and I should not be attempting to, even though it's quite appealing. I like to paint larger paintings and very detailed and beautiful realistic paintings, and that's what fulfills my heart and soul. However, that is not realistic. If I am out and about, I cannot spend weeks and months working on that single painting. All I have is just 2 hours. That's it. And looking at how fast I am, how much I gain from doing what I would like to do, how much I need to capture the scenery, the drawing, how much I would like to give myself time to also learn from observing versus just rushing through it and call it done. I learned a few things which I would like to share with you. One of those things is the size of the painting. And the second one is the amount of art supplies which I need to accomplish my mission of plein air painting and art journaling. And I was very surprised that for me, what actually worked the most is small format, mini painting. And here I am working on 6 centimeters by 6 centimeters, 100% cotton watercolor paper, which I really, really like. And all I have is 4 Sennelier paints, this mini wooden watercolor set, and water brush and piece of napkin. The reason I have this glove on my left hand, in case you're wondering, is I carry this cotton glove with me because outside it was 40 degrees. It was hot, very hot and sunny and bright, as you can see later in the video. And I didn't want my fingers and marks to stay on the paper and then cause resistance while I'm painting. So that's why I usually have this cotton glove with me to help me to protect paper from getting my oil on the paper from the fingers and then cause that resistance. And now going back to what worked for me. The small size, even though you might think it's intimidating, I would say challenge yourself. Try to make a bigger one and see how long it takes you. It's all personal. Some of us like to capture more details and capture that moment and every single heel or impression or something which really matters to us, while others would like to place a few just broad brush strokes and call it done. For me, I like to capture what I consider that scene can give me. And in this case, I really wanted to capture this old-fashioned water tap which sits outside, which has been built many, many years ago and has seen a lot of days and a lot of use with this beautiful backdrop of red pepper drying in the sun and very luscious green canopy of trees in the far distance. But I also wanted to capture this dazzling sunlight, which is playing around and making everything look so luscious and so bright and so vibrant. And remember the moment of that buzzing sound of life all around. Maybe chickens in the background or bees flying around. Everything what made that moment special and unforgettable. And of course, I do have this video to also remind me how everything looked like. And even now, many, many months later, I still remember every single second, every single moment of it. And that is something which camera or even video recording cannot do, because you do not immerse yourself so heavily into observing everything as you do while you are doing painting or drawing of a subject. The second thing which of course worked for me is minimum art supplies. If I take large tin with 24 colors and doesn't matter, half pens, full pens, and bunch of brushes and a few cups of water, and then a few sketchbooks, why not? And maybe small watercolor blocks just in case my artistic muses inspire me to paint something bigger. I know I am going to be completely lost. I would just have so many choices that at the end of the day, I will start something and that's going to be it. It simply, there will be no way that I can complete any of it. That's why over the years I learned that all I need to do, even for extended trip like this, which lasted multiple weeks, I just need to take one small watercolor journal, which is like this, believe it or not, 6 by 6 centimeters, water brush, small watercolor tin, or in this case, this beautiful wooden mini set, and everything fits in my single hand, and I am all set. For many weeks of painting while I was there, I did not miss any of art supplies. I simply had more than enough paper. I barely touched my paint. It's highly concentrated, and it would have taken painting every single day for days and days and days and days to actually even consume what I have. Probably if I was there for 6 months, I would have consumed it, but not really for a few weeks. So that's how you learn that by limiting your choices, you actually give yourself more opportunities. I know it does sound like counterintuitive, but it's not. It actually makes your artistic mind to be laser focused on achieving one and only one objective, and that is to capture that moment, that surrounding, that scenery in the best possible way, in the most vivid way, so that any time later, when you look at that scenery, you are there. You are transposed back in that time, and you see every element of it. The way how I learned to capture those moments outside, which does work for me, and I am sharing here, is that I first do small graphite drawing, and it is very loose and just captures the shapes, proportions. It's one of those things which is the most important, capturing, and helps me to capture the whole subject in that small little piece of paper which I have. Otherwise, if I start without considering the boundaries of the paper, I would probably run out of space to capture what I want to capture. So that's where that graphite drawing helps the most. After that, I go with ink drawing, and I lightly shade the darkest areas so that after that, when I paint with a watercolor, I already have established the darkest darks in the painting. In this case, when I'm working with small format like this, which is, as I mentioned, 6 by 6 centimeters, then using black ink could be a little bit too overpowering, and that was the reason I usually use very dark brown ink. And if I don't find one, I make one. Why not? We are artists. I can combine a few inks and get myself that deep dark brown ink, and then use that one to make this outline. I also learned that for me, one of the best tools to apply that ink is actually old-fashioned dip pen. And that is the one which never let me down in any of the trips and journalings I've ever done. It never ran out. I always had that ink with me, and I'm quite happy with it. It does allow me to create all kinds of lines, and I don't need to carry 5 different kinds of markers just so I can create those thinner and thicker lines, and they don't die on me in the middle of my drawing when I am, as it happens in Amsterdam in Rembrandt's house, and I simply had no backup. So that's why I opted for that old-fashioned D pen. And in one of my videos, I will share how I use it and why I loved it so much. After my drawing, I approach, as you can see, painting in layers. And there is really no special order I approach painting. It's just building layers one at the top of another. In this case, I notice, of course, movement in front of my eyes that my reference called this beautiful red pepper will be moved, and I rushed to paint that first. But then, once I captured its shape and how it looks like and the color, and had mental memory where the highlights are and when the source of light is, then I was good to start outlining and rendering the rest. In the whole painting, I also paid attention about which color I'm seeing in one area, which I'm also seeing in the other area, which can bring the whole composition in balance. And in this case, this very vibrant and very strong red pepper was standing alone on its own without anything so bright and screaming red. However, when I paid a little more attention, closer to the house on the right side, there had been a pile of old-fashioned bricks, which were in a similar terracotta color. And I decided to emphasize them so that they all together come as a balanced union of color and contrast. So this red pepper and red terracotta bricks and tiles next to the house are perfect complement to very luscious greens and yellows which this hot summer day had. In a similar fashion of contrasts and emphasizing one element by painting another element, I also looked around and I noticed that those stones and everything was closer to me was darker and in deeper shadows than what was far away behind the line of peppers and at the end of the field. So I was constantly deepening and darkening that area, the area where I have rocks and I had grass growing between those front rocks, and I had all kinds of moss and other yellow and green hues all around, because there is constant presence of moisture, and when there is moisture, there is life to it as well. Also capturing this old concrete with its own nuances, cracks, build-ups was quite nice and quite lovely experience, because it just shows that it's been there for quite some time and it remembers probably a lot of things which people around lived and enjoyed. And just by painting it in a way where it shows all those scarves and chips, shows that there is a lot of history built in it and a lot of memory which is worthwhile capturing. The whole painting here took about 2 hours, and that's all time I really had. And I did manage to complete it, which was quite delightful. The need to constantly refine and constantly deepen is always there, because the watercolor painting when you place it on the paper, it will have one value, but as it dries, it will probably lose 20-30% depending on the color and hue of its vibrancy and intensity. And instead of guessing how it's going to dry and possibly overpowering the value and the color with going right away with a very strong color, much wiser and more pragmatic approach is to just apply layer after layer after layer, let it dry or just work on another area, and then come back and reevaluate. While capturing also, it's important to know what to avoid for as long as you can until the time comes to balance everything and make everything sing together. And in this case, there have been a few areas which I intentionally avoided almost till the end. One of those, and those areas are usually the areas where there is the strongest color or highlights. And in this case, the tops of the rocks where the sun was dancing, and the top of this concrete enclosure also was where that glimpse of reflected light was exactly shining through. And the field behind also had that glittering light. And I did not paint those things because I didn't want to lose that light. I was keeping it till the end to evaluate, and if needed, then at the end just slightly balance it out, but without really painting it at the beginning and then not having enough value range to capture what I wanted to capture in this scenery. So I hope you enjoyed watching me paint this scenery, and I hope that it will inspire you, that you grab your art supplies, you evaluate what you really want to take with you and what really works for you. And if it is your entire art studio, yes, take it with you because that's what works for you. I'm just sharing what I learned that works for me, that the more is not really better. It just, in my world, turns into huge luggage and headache, which I really don't need. And I can't quite effectively handle if I'm traveling and I am far away and I don't have all amenities of modern world. One small little pouch which fits in my hand, which I can snug in my pocket anytime, and the smallest possible sketchbook with, of course, the best paint and the best paper is all what I need, all what makes me very happy little camper. Now, here you can see how my painting looks like, what I chose to capture, and how the real world in front of me looked like. Mundane scene with, maybe you would say, nothing to capture there, but for me it was the whole fortune of artistic subjects, which I could sit there for months and months and just capture one after another after another. Thank you for watching and have a great day.